How's everybody doing today? Pete here at Spawn Fly Fish, and we've got a fun one for you already in the vise, ready to go. So today we're going to be tying a version of Greg Coffey's Sparkle Minnow. So got the easy stuff out of the way since you guys all know this. But for the hook, we do have the Ahrex SA254, and this is a size 2. I know it's a little big, but for what we're going to be chasing here soon, this will be great. I do have a Spawn super slotted tungsten bead on here, which is at 6.3 millimeter. That's a lot of tungsten, a lot of weight. And then, of course, some 0.025 lead-free wraps just to keep that bead in place. So let's get some thread going here. Nothing crazy. As you can see, I've got some black 140 or 6/0, whatever you want to call it. And yes, by all means, you could get a thread that matches a little better to what you're tying, but this was in my bobbin, and so that's what I'm going with today, is some black. And once I got those weighted wires wrapped down and solidified as much as I would like, I'm just going to keep on going down the shank here and give myself like a little notch or indicator so that I know roughly where I want my tail to be tied in. All right, so since we brought up the tail, let's get into the tail. A lot of times you'll see this pattern tied with the full quill, lots of marabou, big tail, all that good stuff. And that's great. If that's your style, by all means, please feel free and enjoy that. I'm not a fan of how that tail moves with the quill still intact. And so today I will be peeling some fibers off of that marabou quill and then tying those in. Again, it's a quirky thing. It's me. If you like it the other way, that's how you should tie it. So I do want a pretty sizable tail here, a little beefy, right? I'm not going to go 2 times like a lot of these patterns. You'll see videos. A lot of people use huge tails. I think it's a little big. So again, this is just my version of the Sparkle Minnow. So I'm going to tie it the way I enjoy, which is just past 1 hook length for that tail length. And now I transfer that grip into my offhand and just tie those fibers down. Now for this tan color, this is Sculpin tan and is from Nature Spirit, Fish Hunter. And we do want one thing here. Where these fibers meet up with the back side of our weighted wire, that's where I'm going to make that cut. And then when I tie this down, this will help ensure that we have an even underbody from the tip to the tail. And it's important because of course, we're filling this body in with a lot of material. We want that underbody to be even so that the body stays even. So there's our first portion of tail. And of course, we're going to come in with some white. Keep in mind, this fly right now, upside down. So this is how it'll be in the water. So this is our dorsal or darker top. And then we're going to come in with just some regular bleached white as our undertone for our 2-tone tail here. And again, pretty healthy tail. So, you know, this is a great fly, I think, for a lot of beginners. I'm not sure if it seems difficult when they first see it and they stay away from it, but I really do hope that a lot of new tyers will be inspired or, you know, get that little bit of confidence that they can tie this fly. Because there's not a lot going on. It's just a matter of tedium and following the steps correctly. So keep that pinch good, and then we're just going to bring that white portion all the way back on top, or in this case, underneath that tan. So now there's our 2-tone tail. Great. Nothing to it. And again, keep in mind that even underbody. So we're going to make that same cute little cut there so that our fibers are going to be tied down and run in seamlessly, hopefully, with the backside of our weighted lead-free wire. There we go. Keep all that really solidified. Good to go. All right, so now a little flash. And again, you know, I've got a problem with using 2 strands of flash, just not my makeup. So I've got some medium brown Krystal flash here. I've got about 4 or 5 strands. And I will tie this in on my side first, and I just want this going along with the tail. We don't need it spread out underneath and on top, just going on the sides, right where the 2 colors happen to meet. And And then I'll come onto your side, bring that flash over, just grab it with a thread wrap and bring it right on down again, back to where we tied off our tail. And as far as the length, I want it just to match the tail length. Little angle on my blades there when I make that cut ensures that not all of them are, of course, exactly the same length, and that's key. All right. So believe it or not, the vast majority of this fly is already tied. At this point, it's simply a matter of 2 different loops. And yes, multiple ways to tie this fly at this point. And perhaps down the road, we'll get into another version using brushes or what have you. I do want to start using this fly pattern a little bit more. Of course, I'm going to make it my own, but as far as a base from where to start, this is a great bug. So this is one you should definitely learn, should be in your fly box, and the skill set should be something you work on. All right, so real quick, this is going to be our second loop, even though we're tying it first. So one thing to keep in mind is if you don't fill this loop now, yes, absolutely, you could do it after your other loop. It's going to be much more difficult, and you're going to have this little bit of gap here because when we bring this up and over, and just because I said that, let me correct where this sits. I want this 100% on the bottom of the shank. So in line with the bottom of that shank and bead. And then all I'm going to do is fill this with ice dub. And this is UV pearl ice dub. Now, as far as how much, right? You just tie a couple and you will very quickly get the measurements down for what you're tying. But on a big size 2 saltwater hook like this, I'm going to give myself just a little bit extra. And what that looks like is roughly 2.5, maybe even 3 inches, which is excessive. Again, keep in mind, a lot of this is strictly going to be so that you can see it on camera. And then at home, the idea being not waste as much material. And then at that point, you can fine tune how much you're using. All right. So that's going to be our ventral or bottom of this bait fish when we're done. And so now I'm coming in with my brush. I'm just trying to release a bunch of these trapped fibers. Again, this is something you want to do now versus later. It will all make sense as we keep going. This is one of those flies where it's, it's much like an elaborated woolly bugger. And so if you can tie the woolly bugger, you can tie this. Just a couple little things here, mainly just learning, or gaining some more confidence, if you will, with the loops. Once you have that, well, just a matter of putting it all together. And just like the woolly bugger, right? You get everything tied in and then it's just boom, 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 run through the steps. Next thing you know, you're putting head cement on. All right, so this is our second loop that we're going to make. However, it would be the first loop that we utilize. All right, so now for our big loop, if you will, our big body, this is ice dub in olive brown. Now, this is a lot of dubbing going into this loop. We do need a pretty beefy body. And again, this is where one of those variants comes into play. By all means, you can use a core on that body of some chenille and then come through with a loop or a brush, right? 80 different ways to get this done. This is just one of them. All right, as far as the measurement, this is a big one. My scissor is about 4.5 inches. This chunk of olive brown ice dub is a full scissor length. And so, again, I'm tying on a big hook, size 2. When you're tying for smaller water or smaller fish, maybe you get down to a size 6 or something. Of course, the length of these loops will change just slightly. And somewhere, I believe on YouTube, Josh does have a micro version of a Sparkle Minnow that he tied. Don't quote me though. I could be just remembering things a little wrong. Getting up there in age happens. All right, so take your time at this point. Really brush out this loop. All right, ice dub is great. A lot of kinks and color hidden inside of those fibers, and we want to release all of that so that every bit of that goodness gets a chance to do what it's supposed to do, which mainly blink and flash in the water, get some attention, and cause those fish to come over, because once they do, it's game on. They're going to eat. All right, that's pretty well brushed out right there. All right, so now it's just a matter of touching wraps. Keep that stuff moving, and this is where that big tail really shines, right? Because this ice dub doesn't really reach back as far as some other dubbings or brushes might. So that, keep that in mind as well for your finished goal, so to speak. Is if you're looking for something with a little bit bigger body, well, then maybe ice dub isn't the body material for you. You could go with sparkle brush, you could go with any number of chenille's, PCUV, or, polar chenille, any of that would be great. It's just going to take a lot of material to fill this stuff in. So be mindful. All right. I'm getting right up to it here. And I told you, we're going to use all of that 4.5, 5 inches of brush that we made, or noodle, or loop even. All right. Let's tie this guy off. Get my tool out of there, and then bring that back. Get a couple thread wraps to really make sure that the thread portion of this loop is sealed and trapped. What you don't want is that to come undone. All right. And once more with our brush. And this is the Swiss CDC brush. And amazing tool. As you know, when I find a tool I like, good luck getting it out of my hands. All right, so what I'm really concentrating on here is, yes, we want full release of these fibers all the way around the shank, but I'm also working at keeping in mind we're going to be pulling this ventral or bottom side over, right? So what I'm going to do now is come in with my bodkin and get a little, no pun intended, but I'm going to get a little picky. And I'm picky that I want to separate a clear side to side sort of thing. So I got this gap here on the very bottom. I'm trying to twist that. There we go. So now you can see at this point that ventral or ice pearl loop that we filled in, let's just get that brushed back, right? And this is why, because as we lay this down, we want to utilize all that material, but we don't need it going over toward the bead or hook eye. We need it all flowing back. So just take your time, get it ready, and then a soft wrap. Get in there, look at your fly. Make sure that pearl is sitting underneath on the bottom. Now, give some pull down with some tension and get that second wrap. Again, making sure everything is staying in line. I can pop that tool out, my spinner, and come in. So let me just see here. I'll show you guys what I'm working with. You see how that pearl is going to stay underneath? Fantastic. All right, so one more wrap, maybe 2. Get this stuff out of here. Clean cut. And this little bit, you can go ahead and clean that up. But beauty is it's right behind that bead. And so it's just going to grab when we can wrap that down with our thread. Look at that, clean as can be. And if you're paranoid, go ahead and take your time, get in there again, pull it all back, make a very neat thread neck. There we go. Good finish time. Told you guys, not much to it, just getting it done in the proper sequences. Take your time, measure out your materials, and consistency is key. So the more you do this, the better you get. Maybe get a prep station, really see what your materials look like. You'd be surprised from 1 fly to 6 how much that changes. And as much as we like to think, we're pretty close, we're pretty good, do yourself a favor. Measure it out 6 times before you start tying, and your consistency will improve. All right, simple little Stomfo comb at this point. Just going to make sure all these fibers are going back. And, so, all right. And, let's get rid of that. Okay, so now head cement, great, but we're going to pop this out and get right into some water for you. Marabou really does not want to get wet today. There we go. Forgive my arm here for 1 second as I get this minnow out of the water here. Try to rinse it off a little bit for you. And pop it back in. And there we go. And there we have Sparkle Minnow. And of course, got that dark top, little pearl underneath, and that's going to look very sculpin-y in the water, and it's going to do just fine. So, just one way to tie it, and we'll have more ways coming at you pretty soon. But if you enjoyed this, by all means, please hit like, please hit subscribe. We will see you guys on the water.